Hi guys, it's Coach Anthony back at you with another edition of Animate, bringing chess to life. I want to continue our Meet the Team series, and today's character of choice is the Rook. Now, the Rook is the second most powerful piece of the hierarchy, and I want to examine the movements of the Rook. What we can see is that the Rook moves across the ranks or up or down the files. So, first test as usual. If the Rook can go to all those squares that the arrow has shown, pause the video very quickly and tell us how many squares can the Rook go to. Hopefully you've done that, and let's check the answer. Well, the Rook can go to the following squares along the E file, and the Rook can also go to the following squares along the fourth rank. And if we count all those squares very quickly, we should get the number 14. The Rook, being the second most powerful piece, is an aggressive character. So the Rook should be used actively. What Rooks really love so that they can flex their muscles is open space. When they have open space, then they can really show their strengths. And to demonstrate this, I have drafted in a few of those little guys, minions, pawns on the black team to just demonstrate this fact. Now, these particular pawns have a glaring weakness. And that weakness is, even though they're side by side, they can protect themselves from the front, but they can't protect themselves from the side. So let's demonstrate this. If this Rook is to attack, we've got a good target here on G7. If the Rook is to attack this pawn on G7, well, as we said before, once pawns are side by side and they've got friends, they can make a pawn chain and tempt this white Rook and say, well, come on then, come and get us. And if the Rook was to dare to capture this pawn, we can see that the Rook will be captured by either the pawn on F7 or the pawn on H7, as they control the G6 square. So, can we find a better way to attack the weaknesses of those pawns? Pause the video for a second and see if you might work out what rank we may want to attack the pawns. Hopefully you've done that and you've come back and you've worked out that it may be a good idea for the Rook to get to the 7th rank, because when it gets to the 7th rank, it will be able to say hello to all of these little guys. Okay, so let's follow that through. White to move, and now you see that we are putting pressure on the F7 pawn. But black faces a conundrum. They've got a real challenge right now, which is if the F7 pawn runs away, then unfortunately the G7 pawn is going to get it. Somebody's going to have to get it. Well, let's see. Well, let's imagine the G7 pawn said, no way, Jose, I'm saving myself. Well, our Rook gets its first lunchtime meal and also applies some more pressure on the h7 pawn. Well, the h7 pawn says, well, look, I really don't want no part of this. Runs away. Where do you think would be the best place to put the rook? Hopefully, you're beginning to see the pattern that if we go alongside the pawns, then once again, both pawns become serious targets. So let's follow that through. Well, now comes the hard choice. Either it's going to be the g6 pawn or the h6 pawn. One of them needs to say bye-bye. Well, let's save the h pawn. Okay, well, this rook is doing mightily fine. And now the h pawn was really trying to make a dash for it, trying to get to the end of the board so that they can get promotion. Now, what will be the best way to stop this pawn? A lot of people will immediately jump on the idea of trying to go along the same file, just like we did previously. But there is a difference. Previously, we had more than one pawn on the same rank. So when the rook came on the same rank, then it was effective. But in this case scenario, we only have one little guy all by themselves. And pawns have a second weakness. And that weakness is when we go behind them, unfortunately, they cannot move backwards, so they can't protect themselves. So the rook takes up a very nice position. And unfortunately, this pawn is an absolute goner. And there we go. Great work for the white team. Rooks do have something that they really don't like, and that is when they are blocked. And as you can see here, our own little guy is blocking our rook. Now, previously we saw that the rook, when it had the open space, had a potential of 14 squares that it could go to. Unfortunately, because of that little guy, this rook's potential has been cut into half. Only 7 squares available for this rook. So this rook is feeling rather annoyed. I wonder how we could maybe increase the number of squares that the rook could go to. Hopefully, you may have noticed that if the pawn moves 1 square or 2, this will increase. I think I like the idea of 2 because it simply means that we've increased the squares by 2 extra squares. So now we have a total of 9 squares that the rook can go to. So, to summarize, rooks are long range pieces, meaning they can have influence over the board. They can literally sit on one side of the board and reach easily into your opponent's territory, as we can see. So in summary, rooks love it when they have space. They don't really like it when they're blocked. They are the second most powerful piece, and we'll be seeing a lot more of them in future videos. Please like and subscribe, and see you guys on the next video.